Cade. What's that?
Give him a bit more.
Hello, yes.
1, 2. All good? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Mic's up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to Jenna Steele Stadium. Round 21 NPL Victoria action coming to you live. Preston Lions versus Port Melbourne. One side chasing the top 6 and a finals berth in their first season in the top flight in 15 years. The other fiercely scratching and clawing for NPL Victoria survival. It is a massive game for both these sides. We'll take you through the team news. Preston with 5 changes from the team that went down 4-0 against the Oakley Cannons behind closed doors last week. Matt Bozanovsky returns from suspension back into the heart of defence. In comes Luke Jego and Ollie Kubalay in midfield. John Albano on the wing, and Luke Francis makes his starting debut up top. Aaron Anderson dropped. Giorgio Serdenis, Connor Bell, Marcus Schroen and Brandon Lawton dropped to the bench. Ryan Scott continues between the sticks. Stefan Negro has played every minute for Preston this season and continues at right back, with Jake Tchaikovsky and Dom Foligno making up the rest of the defence. Jason Romero continues in the attacking midfield role with Leighton Brooks on the right. Lucas Trenkovsky, the backup goalkeeper, on the pine. For Port Melbourne, 4 changes from the team that went down 2-0 to St Albans last week in that relegation 6-pointer. In comes Owen McCloskey, Anthony Laban and Amanholm Karmas from the bench to the starting lineup. No Liston Diaz or Mark Latzis in the squad. Mitch Trychevsky and Aidan Brown drop to the bench. Finn Harbinson comes in for his Port Melbourne debut up top. The 18-year-old joining from Melbourne Victory after scoring 5 goals for FC Bulleen Lions last season in VPL 1. Continuing the starting lineup, Luka Romic, Will Gillingham making just his 2nd appearance since joining in the transfer window. George Mel's the same, Riyad Muyet, Jonathan Vakurtis, Maker and Delano Ferro, the former Preston player and player of the season winner here in 2023. Oliver Yankolovsky comes in on the bench alongside Nathan Dibb. Nicholas Skokic is the new backup goalkeeper signing from Bo Morris in the transfer window, and Daniel Serra is the final option available to Maxi Gajdovski. Very interesting subplot to this game is the potential inside knowledge of Port Melbourne's coach. Maxim Gajdovski was part of the coaching team here at Preston last season and served as the team's analyst after 8 years at Zenit St Petersburg. So vast coaching experience, but his first senior head coaching role, and he might have the inside track on what Preston are trying to do tactically. We'll wait and see. Josh Parrish here alongside Cade Lucas today. Cade, welcome to Jenna Steele Stadium.
Thank you, Josh. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to our viewers as referee Jack Morgan gets us underway here on a cool but clear Sunday afternoon in Melbourne's north. Preston, of course, in their traditional red, going towards the right of your screen, and they're going forward early doors here. Port, of course, in the white away strip with blue and red trim. So no confusing these two sides today. No confusing them on the table too. They've got different objectives out there this afternoon as an early sighter comes in from the right-hand side by Leighton Brooks. And it's into the path of Luka Romic, the Port Melbourne keeper, clad in green this afternoon. Here's George Mills, back in Port Melbourne colours after a couple of years away. He returned to the club in the transfer window as the first foul of the afternoon is blown. It's going to go the way of the home side as the home supporters bang the drum. Not the biggest crowd we've seen here at Jenna Steele Stadium this season or the last few seasons. Maybe Preston's recent form is part of that 4-0 defeat against Oakley last week. It was probably a low point of the season, but opportunity does knock for them today, as Josh mentioned in the intro. Likes of Dandy City and Hume City, Green Gully dropping points. A win here today could see them go as high as 5th, and they're going down the channel here. And the flag was down momentarily, but now it's up. Romero was off. Both teams feeling themselves out here in this. It was Albano, rather, who was just off, the former Melbourne Knights man. As both these teams feel themselves out in the opening exchanges.
Well, no Liston Diaz for Port Melbourne today. He is a massive loss. The captain of the club, 8 goals this season for a side that struggled to score. He's been restricted to just 10 appearances this season, a few of those off the bench as well. So he has by far and away the most efficient goal per minute ratio in the competition. He's averaging a goal every 79 minutes, which is just ridiculous. Unfortunately, injury has stymied his and Port Melbourne's aspirations this season. He is a massive loss. He was the match winner against Melbourne Victory 2 weeks ago at the home of the Matildas.
Without him, it really falls on Delano Ferro to score the goals. He's the next highest scorer with 3. So,
well, they did have Tom Alexandros with 5, but he's left in the transfer window to join Oakley. So he's a big loss as well. He's the player who scored the winner in stoppage time in dramatic fashion against Preston last time out. It was a shock result at the time. It's still a shock result now.
Might be young Harbinson, who you mentioned in the intro. He sounds like a very likely type, making his debut today. Certainly knows where the goals are in the lower reaches with Bulleen, so maybe he could make his presence felt this afternoon.
He's an exciting player, Ben Harbinson. He had a run where he scored 3 goals in 3 games last season, and we thought he was destined for very big things. Didn't work out for him at Victory as Jago robs the ball off Mells. Big early chance for Preston, and John Albano tucks it home. Port Melbourne, the architects of their own downfall there. But what about the cross from Luke Jago?
Well, that's just the tonic for Preston after what's been a very difficult week for them. They have put themselves on top here after just 3.5 minutes. And as you mentioned, Josh, the ball in from Luke Jago was an absolute peach. Gian Albano is not a big man, but he didn't need to be there. He snuck in behind, and then it was an easy header for the former Melbourne Knight to put into the open net. And that is the ideal start for Louis Aseski and his men. There might be a few more Preston fans coming down as news of that early goal filters through. They are in control early on here. It's Preston 1, Port Melbourne 0. And depending on what happens elsewhere today between Dynamo and Melbourne Knights, the Sharks' predicament could get a lot worse. Currently second last. They could be last if Melbourne Knights can beat their near neighbours this afternoon in the other afternoon kickoff.
That was the miscontrol from Mells. The pass put him under all sorts of pressure, and his first touch just wasn't good enough. Luke Jago smelled that opportunity and was on him in a flash. Now Barno repaying the faith shown in him. Hasn't started too many games for Preston of late, but recalled to the starting lineup. And he nets his 4th of the campaign. Pretty straightforward finish, but in the right place at the right time and kept his cool. This is Gillingham. Mouillette. One's crossed the line for a Preston throw. Well, Maxi Gajdowski has sent Mitch Trachevsky to warm up already. Could we be seeing one of the earliest substitutions of the season?
Only just over 5 minutes played. Usually only see substitutes at this time for an injury. It's an old Jose Mourinho special, the first half substitution.
Maybe he's just sent him to warm up near his teammates on that right of screen, just to send the message that this isn't good enough.
It's only he who's been sent to warm up, no one else has.
Romero, the 1-2 with Francis. Still Romero. Had to punch through the killer ball to Brooks. McCloskey in the way. Negro. If that one's short for Brooks. Away come Ports. Harbinson. Well marshalled by Kubalate. And Sasha Ognanovsky, assistant coach and football director here at Preston, just giving Stefan Negro a few words of advice.
Come wider, Steph, come wider.
So it's Jake Tchaikovsky finding the feet of Albano. Turn ball was just off the mark, intercepted by Mells. For Curtis, back to Karmas.
Don't let him out! Don't let him out!
Don't let him out is the shout from the Preston bench. And the press has been furious in this first few minutes.
There's Negro. Can't do much there, Stefan Negro. It's out of play, just below us. McCloskey has had plenty of work to do already with the throw to Moyet. Back towards McCloskey, right below our broadcast tower here, and that's a long ball forward. Harbinson scampering after it. But the pink-clad Scott comes out to meet it. First game in Preston colours today after the transfer window. His first touch of the ball, the real first forward foray for Port Melbourne at all, really. It's been almost exclusively played in their half. And even now, Preston looking very casual at the back. Plenty of time for the centre-backs. They probably would have hoped to have done a bit better with that pass. And now it's the visiting keeper, Romich, with the ball at his feet. Gillingham. A lot of play being centred on this near side. Negro. Kubalay in midfield. Here's Francis. Moyet with a timely intervention. They are knitting the passes together nicely here, the Lions. Ball to the edge of the area. Francis has a physical presence. And again, it's up to McCloskey to mop up. Francis holding it up. Romero. Jego. He'll create the last goal. And again, it's out towards Albano. He's far too far out to score this. Sorry, it's not Albano, it's Foligno. Now it's Albano down the flank. Karmas gets out, but Romero stops him from going too far. They are keeping them penned in here nicely, Preston.
Oh, I was just noticing that ball in from Foligno, that early diagonal cross. Preston would never have played that pass before Luke Francis signed for the team. But he gives them a different look up top. He's got the height and the physicality to enable them to go more direct earlier in the phases of possession. Didn't work out that time, but it does give Preston a different look up top. That's a beautiful ball from Jego. And it picks out Brooks, who has Francis on the far stick, and the cross was just overcooked. He was arriving unopposed at the back post there, Luke Francis.
Again, they're getting some real joy down this right-hand side, Preston. That's where the first goal came from, and the cross there from Brooks was, well, it looked nice off the boot. It was just a bit overcooked. Now it's Jego in midfield, brought it down. Kubalay. Plenty of white shirts camped behind the ball here. Romero, nice turn. Still he's going, Romero, into the area. This is a great run. There's no one there to support him, though. And Port look to go on the break. It's Maker. And now Harbinson, as they get on their bike here, the visitors. Harbinson down the near side. There's not a whole lot ahead of him. They wait for the cavalry to arrive. It's Pharaoh now to the edge of the area. This is promising a good ball across. Laban with an attempted shot. Maker. Preston finally having to do some defending. Romero, like he was going to get out of trouble, then ran into it. Jego.
Oh, and Stefan Nigro's got a problem here. Preston don't really have a natural replacement on the bench. We're looking at the squads before kickoff, Cade, and they're all attacking or midfield players in reserve.
Lujaszewski will be hoping he doesn't have to make an early change. He talks about whether Maxim Gadovsky could be making an early change. It might be his opposite number who does so even before him.
The whole Preston bench, all the outfield players have been sent to warm up, which is par for the course, a few times a half. Tchaikovsky of Port Melbourne still going through his paces as well.
He's up on his feet, Negro, but he's got the physio with him. If they were to make a change, who would you fancy would come on? Lawton? Or?
I think Lawton at right back. We saw him play, well, it's a long time ago now, but his A-League appearances for Melbourne Victory were primarily as a right back. Not his natural position, but that was where he was able to get a run in the team. And he's deputised there on rare occasions for Preston last season. So he'll probably be the most natural replacement they have available to them.
Looks like Negro's going to soldier on for the moment, or is he?
He's been waved back on by the fourth official, Bailey Panuto. So Steph Negro will try and run this off. And he's a tough cookie, already mentioned on the broadcast. He hasn't missed a minute for Preston this season, and he's not about to start now. Matt Bozanovsky in the back line had the same record as Negro. First name on the team sheet every week. Served his suspension for 5 accumulated yellow cards against Oakley last week, and boy, did the defence miss him. Brooks. The 1-2 with Francis. Great combination. Romero was free in the middle, and the cross couldn't find him. Jego. Kubalay. Out to Albano. Kubalay into the channel. Slides it across goal. And Will Gillingham makes the crucial interception. Tchaikovsky. Negro. Still running a little gingerly after that injury, Negro. Bozanovsky. It's a rather aimless pass from Negro. And an even worse effort from Anthony Laban. It's a sloppy turnover from Port.
Stefan Negro might have the injury, but he's certainly not short of work. It looks like he's going to take the throw here. Lujaszewski hands in the ball right below us. As we approach a quarter of an hour here at Genestil Stadium. It's the home side with their noses in front, courtesy of Gian Albano. There's Bozanovsky towards the Foligno and the aforementioned Albano over on the clubroom side. Foligno there in support, and he's snuck in behind. He'll just get it up against the corner flag. And Verkurtzis saw it out of play. This will be the first corner of the afternoon for Preston. As the band strikes up again. Looks like it's Romero who's going to take it. No breeze really to speak of today, so that shouldn't be a factor here. We'll have no shortage of targets to aim for around the edge of the 6-yard box. Bozanovsky's up there. Kubalay. Also Tchaikovsky. In comes the cross. Karmas put it straight up and down the chimney. Now Romic had 2 bites at it and eventually got his hands around it. The Port Melbourne keeper. And the Sharks survive. And now it's Harbison, who really is a one-man band up there today. Not only is he making his debut, but he's doing one of the toughest jobs in football. Lone man up top. There's Negro.
Thought you were going to say replacing Liston Diaz.
Well,
tough
yes,
job as well.
Indeed. He looks pretty game though. But he and his teammates are They're going to be doing a lot of chasing here this afternoon, especially with Preston having an early goal. See them just working Port from side to side at the back. Trykowski, now Urbano down the flank. It's in a tangle with Maker, keeps his feet. Francis, Gillingham beats him to it. Laban. Camus. Laban, this way then that away. Nice interplay with Vikertzis, the skipper, who's brought down. And it looks like we're going to have a booking. Romero was the man who went in. Unsurprisingly, the crowd's not impressed, but at least from this vantage point, it didn't look like there was too much to argue with there. In fact, was it Albano who went in?
Yeah, it was Albano who's been booked.
I'm getting him and Romero mixed up with two sevens on their back.
It's a stylish Preston font.
Well, he's had an interesting afternoon already. A goal and a yellow card, and we're barely 20 minutes in.
And Preston arguing he got the ball. It was a strong challenge, that's for sure. Albano jinks past his man. Advantage paid. Foligno's ball into the box. And Brooks went to meet it, but saw his effort smothered by McCloskey. Might still be alive for Preston as Francis wins it back. McCloskey will sweep up for Port. Melts. Gonna get the attack going in the other direction. Harbinson, little layoff for Muyetz. Gets himself tied up in knots. Calmly recycled by Bozanovsky. Preston will want to capitalise on this momentum with another goal. Been plenty of occasions, especially at home this season, where they haven't polished teams off when they've had them on the ropes. It's come back to haunt them. Jego. Ball takes an awkward skip and it evades Romero. Kubalay looks long for Brooks. The flag stays down on Leighton Brooks. He beats Romic at his near post, and Preston have two. Leighton Brooks from the unlikeliest of angles.
Well, no goalkeeper wants to be beaten at their near post. And Luka Romic won't want to see a replay of that. He was off his line a bit when Brooks got in behind and the flag stayed down. And I think he was expecting Brooks to send the ball across. I think all of us were, but Brooks had other ideas and Romic somehow let it squirm underneath him. And he and his teammates will be very underwhelmed with that.
Just by his reaction, I do wonder whether it was a mishit cross, Cade.
It did, well, it caught us all by surprise, and it certainly caught Romic by surprise, but even so, he did get enough on it, just let it squirm underneath him, and we're not even 20 minutes in, and suddenly they are facing a very tall order now, Port Melbourne.
And in some ways, it's reminiscent of the goal he conceded last week against St Albans Dynamo. Josh Diven squeezing it home from about 10-degree angle. And Romic didn't get across in time for the second attempt.
You mentioned Dynamo. Wonder if word of this goal has filtered over to Churchill Reserve, where they're playing Melbourne Knights. Both clubs will have an eye on this game, with Port Melbourne in between both of them at the foot of the table. Both Knights and Dynamo will be pleased with the way this result's going so far. There's Negro. There's the free kick below us. He's staying out there. He seems to have run off that knock for the time being. I'm sure the fact that his side is already 2 goals up probably soothes the pain a bit. Bozanovsky. Negro. Over the head of Francis. Gillingham with him. And here's Brooks, the goal scorer now, Kubalay. Preston looking to go for the jugular here, a third goal, and they would have this game killed off within half an hour. Quite the contrast to last week. Here's Camus. Whereas last week, Port Melbourne lost 2-0 to St Albans. Same scoreline they're facing now, so a bad case of deja vu for them, at least to this point. Laban
did have a glorious chance at 0-0 in that game when Winston Diaz robbed his man of possession, much in the same fashion that Luke Jago did in setting up the first goal today, and fired straight at the goalkeeper.
They don't have him to call on today either.
Well, here's their spark plug. They really miss him.
Here's Brooks again. Doesn't go for goal this time. Not sure what he was doing with that ball. Romero arrives, and now Albano. Kubele, they're queuing up again here, the Lions. It's Kubele into the area. Brooks, now Francis, the keeper's out. And Port Melbourne survive. They do look very rocky at the back, and Pharaoh's conceded possession. Felino's driving forward now again. Gets a ball in. Camus saw it coming though. Now Camus tumbles over in his own area. I think he may have put a bit of mayo on that, but he gets the free kick. They are right under the cosh now, the visitors. Suddenly it opens up for them on the counter, possibly. McCloskey, Harbinson, trying to test out that injury on Negro, and Negro recovered pretty well there. Sends it out of play.
It's a terrific tackle from Negro.
It looks like Harbinson might have hurt himself in the process. He's reaching for his ankle or Achilles.
It's the last thing Port Melbourne need. It's already so short of options in attack. Aidan Brown would be the obvious replacement if they're forced to make a change. He's another teenager. The age profile of this Port Melbourne team just skews so young. It's one of the reasons they're in the predicament they're in. Just don't have enough experience in the squad. But just earlier in that passage of play, how many times have we seen Preston play that left to right switch over the top for Leighton Brooks? Jago's hit it at least twice. I think it was Kubele's pass in the lead up to the second goal. They are exposing Port Melbourne down that right-hand side time and time and time again.
That's where both goals have come from. And now, even though they're down a man momentarily, Port Melbourne have the ball at the other end of the pitch. They can't do much with it though, but they've hardly got into their forward third at all today. There's been one or two moments as Harbinson is going to soldier on. That's good news for Port Melbourne for the time being. It's Negro with the throw. Laban uses his body well to win the ball, get rid of his opponent. Now Camus couldn't quite control that as he would have liked, and he goes all the way back to Romic. Gillingham, they are messing around with it at the back a bit. Port, now they might be out through Moyet. Harbinson coming deep. Moyet again. Harbinson. The whistle was blown. Jack Morgan was right there.
Ball was rolling.
It's Bozanovsky who will take the free kick.
Just feel as if Port are so uncomfortable with the ball in their own defensive half. Just wonder if they can go a little bit more direct, bypass the midfield and the Preston press a little bit more. And
doesn't look like they're really set up to play like that with Harbinson up top. He's not a big target man, like say Francis is for Preston.
Maybe they could move, I know it's not his natural role, but they could move Maker a little further forward. You can see him jogging up to join the strikers now when they have possession, but they haven't been able to pick him out. Did go direct in the direction of Maker, but Foligno, despite giving away about a foot in height, still won the aerial duel. He sends it forward for Francis. Well contested by Gillingham that time. The Kiwi defender joining from Cove Rangers in the Scottish third tier. He's had a career that's taken him all over the world through the US college system as well. Oh yes, McCloskey. McCloskey. You can see Negro pull up short there. They feed it out to Delano Ferro. Tries to deliver the early cross. It's off Bozanowski and behind for a Port Melbourne corner. Their first of the afternoon.
Well, this might be their best route back into the game, Port. Set pieces, they do have plenty of tall timber out there. You mentioned Maker before. Also Cummins and the aforementioned Gillingham. George Mills is a good set piece specialist. This will be just the tonic for them to get back into this game as we approach the half-hour mark. They're 2 goals down. Can they halve that margin? Mills. Bozanowski commanding header away. Now Brooks and Jego just bangs it high into the afternoon sky here. I'm not exactly sure what he was up to there, Luke Jego, but he clears the danger.
Big shake of the head from Jego after he cleared that as well. That was not what he intended. He's been fantastic today, though.
Coming back into the side.
Probably the only Preston player who emerged with any credit from that 4-0 defeat to Oakley last week. Came on once the damage was done and did stabilise things and Preston more midfield presence. This is Laban with the big switch. It's given Vikertis a lot of work to do here. And Foligno gets there first, wins the ball, but concedes the corner.
So, decent old collision between those two. Vikertis put his body on the line and won another corner for his team. So, signs of something of a revival here for Port Melbourne, especially if they can get a goal back before the break.
Smells over the set piece again. Maker is the target, straight into the palms of Ryan Scott. A big drop punt away. Doesn't pick out a teammate. Muyet's a little short for Romic, and Albano comes to apply the pressure. Very coolly done by Romic on that occasion. Mells spreading the play for Karmas. Defenders with a bit of time on the ball for once.
They do seem to have dropped off a little bit, Preston, obviously to conserve a bit of energy.
Laid off by Albano. Now Romero. Brooks offering down the right, and he gets it from Negro. Oh, great footwork from Leighton Brooks. Skips past 2 challenges, but the release came too late, although the whistle has gone. It's a little chop at the ankles.
Something, one of the differences between the teams we've noticed today, that Preston players do have the ability to take on their opponents and dribble with the ball, create things. It's not something we've really seen from anyone in a Port Melbourne shirt so far.
I think Delano Ferro is probably the player they'll look to drift into channels on the counter-attack and try and take on his man. He's capable of doing it.
We've struggled to get him into the game. You haven't called his name too much, Ferro. No doubt he'll be keen to get on the score sheet against his former club.
As he did in the reverse fixture. Fresh off after coming off the bench. It's a great goal he scored. I mentioned the absence of Diaz, but also Nick Dibb, another former Preston player. He's here for 2 seasons. He scored an absolute worldie last time out. It's a juggle and volley from the edge of the penalty area, one of the goals of the season. And that's surely another free kick against Mouillet, who's racking up the fouls now.
Seems like both teams are conserving a bit of energy as we head towards half-time. Certainly Preston not pressing with the same vigour as early on, but I suppose they've got a 2-goal buffer. They can feel they can just ease off a little bit. And as I say that, they're coming forward, and Francis, he's free. The flag's down. And now back to Albano for his second. Just scooped that over the top, Gian Albano. Couldn't really get the ball out from underneath him to really get any leverage on the shot. But that was remarkably easy the way they got through there. Francis, I don't think, could believe his luck that he was free in behind. And again, Port Melbourne make hard work of getting out of their defensive third.
Well, that move all came from Jake Tchaikovsky in centre of defence, making a run with the ball into midfield and forcing Port Melbourne to make a decision. Do you leave your man to go and make a challenge? Do you keep your shape? If he sees green grass in front of him, he'll take it on. It's well worked out at the back line by Port Melbourne this time. McCloskey has the turn of pace to get there. Laban with time to make up his mind. Chips it into the channel. McCloskey, the early delivery that should be easily dealt with by Bozanovsky, and is. Romero rides the challenge of Laban. And Mouillet just got a crucial glancing touch on that. Leighton Brooks would have been in behind again. Mouillet, fancy footwork. He's not going to get the whistle he was looking for. Jego offering short off the throw. Negro. Very neatly done by Preston. Preston need to work the ball from right to left. Foligno. Just curls out on Jason Romero as he tried to create an overload down the left.
It's been mostly down the right where they've done the damage, but they've also been able to make inroads down the opposite flank, Preston. They've used their width very effectively so far. Here's Maker for Curtis, and he only hits the back of Kubalay. Gillingham arrives. He's got Francis hanging off him. And now it's Harbison deep in his own half. There's not much ahead. He looks for Pharaoh, but there's red shirts everywhere.
I think it's one of the downsides of the system that Port are playing is there's only really one dedicated wide player on each flank. Preston can create an overlap with the fullback coming forward. He left for the 2v1, and the defenders on either side of the back three have to come out wide and cover.
Go out very wide here. McCloskey just keeps it in. Here's Pharaoh. Bozanovsky all over him. Negro seems to have recovered pretty well from that injury early on. Francis and Gillingham. Francis wins it. Now Brooks. Danger here for Port Melbourne. Brooks would have liked that cross again. Just miscued it slightly.
Given his recent record, it might have been a shot.
Yes. Luka Romic should certainly be happy to have seen that one gone wide, considering what happened earlier in the half. Here's Moyet to McCloskey. Can't quite control it. Jego again. Runs into a cul-de-sac this time. It's George Mills over towards Maker, who's been a bit quiet by his standards. Now Vakurtzis. Can they manufacture something here, the Sharks? Inside 10 minutes to go before the break. They're 2 goals adrift. Albano and Leighton Brooks with the strikes for the home team. Here's McCloskey. He'll whip in the cross. Bozanovsky was first there. Negro. Still Negro. Now Jego just puts the laces through it from one end to the other. Cummins at the back. Gillingham's gone down behind play. Cummins is there. Game opening up a bit as we head towards the break. Here's Francis trying to get the better of Cummins, and he goes down. And this will be another yellow. First of the day for Port Melbourne. Cummins goes in the book.
Yeah, it's cynical from Amanholm Cummins. It's just had his arms wrapped around him. Francis had him beaten.
Francis was a bit slow to get up, but he's up now and he'll be trying to get on the end of this free kick that Leighton Brooks is going to take. Actually, it looks like Romero's going to take this one.
Could take it down the line to Brooks if he wants to.
He's got plenty of options on the edge of the 18-yard box, and that's where he's going. He floats it in. Bozanovsky's up there. Certainly got enough purchase, but it was always going wide.
Bozanovsky's only goal this season came off a Jason Romero free kick. Ball was virtually on the goal line when he forced it over, but they all count. McCloskey finding Harbinson, who's dropped deep. Lovely ball with the outside of his boot. Picking out Farrow in the channel, and Tchaikovsky will go into the book here as well.
I called Comis's foul cynical before. I think that was even more so.
No complaints from Jake Tchaikovsky. He knew what he was doing, and he knew what the punishment would be.
There have just been flickers of life with Port Melbourne, particularly down this flank.
Well, that's his 5th of the campaign, Jake Tchaikovsky, so he will miss next week. Home game against the Melbourne Knights incoming.
And they're already stretched for defenders as it is. So.
Lujatsevski doesn't want a wall here. Telling Luke Jego to back off and guard the near post. Whipped in by McCloskey, and it comes straight to Jego. Hooked away by Foligno. A flag was up for offside anyway. I think Lujatsevski proved right by the trajectory of that free kick.
He was certainly barking orders. He'd be pretty happy, all things considered, with the way this half's gone, certainly compared to last week. As things stand, they are going to go 5th in the table, Preston. As they work it down the outer side, Foligno straight into the path of Karmas for Kurtzis. Have Port got something in them before the break to make things interesting? It has been a pretty easy afternoon so far for Preston. Negro. Ricochet's out of play.
Yeah, Preston have done this as pretty much at a canter, haven't they?
Ryan Scott's had a very easy debut in goal for the home side. He has hardly had a touch. 2 or 3 goal kicks or a throw, and that's about it. Certainly no saves.
Certainly going smoother than his first game last week.
It's his home debut, not full debut. Certainly looks very fetching in his pink goalkeeper's outfit.
He was partially at fault for the opening goal, which came very early against Oakley last week. Later on in the match, he did show his quality with a couple of really sharp saves. It's given away by Port. Just wouldn't settle for Romero. Got his ball caught underneath his foot. That's a ball switch of play from Laban. It's going to be Foligno's throw up the line. Francis is the target. Does his job, wins the flick on. Albano not quite there in time. I'm really impressed with Francis on starting debut. Provided all the work rate, physicality you'd want from a player in his position.
He's certainly, as they say in the classics, he's a big unit. He certainly kept Gillingham occupied at the heart of the Port Melbourne defence.
He's been picked out off a couple of crosses. He could have had a goal already.
Flicking it on here. It's Gillingham who recovers. Back to Romic, who will look to get away with it. He shows some fancy footwork, but you do have your heart in your mouth a bit when Port Melbourne do that. They've come undone a bit at the back so far today. They do manage to play it out this time. Mells to Harbinson. And suddenly it opens up down the near side. Here's Laban. Oh, just got a bit too much on that ball for Pharaoh, who's quick but not quite that quick.
Well, Port Melbourne did the hard part. They played out through the press, even if you were watching through gritted teeth at times. And they drew Bozanovsky out of position with Harbinson dropping deep. Preston's best defender out of the heart of the back line. That's when you want to strike, and it just broke down at the last moment.
As I mentioned earlier, they have shown a few flickers of life as we enter the final minute of the half. Looks like we're going to have 3 minutes of first half stoppage time. It's Ryan Scott with the goal kick.
3 minutes up on the board at the end of this first half. Had a couple of injury stoppages. Laban had his heels clipped, and eventually Jack Morgan reaches for the whistle.
Moyet, McCloskey. And he looks for Pharaoh, who's got there this time. He'll take it to the byline, but the flag's up. Sums up a frustrating first half for the visitors. They've struggled to lay a glove on Preston, who after that early flurry have really played with the handbrake on a bit. Looked for a moment there as though they were going to blow Port Melbourne away, but after the second goal, which was scored in the 19th minute, they've cruised along the home side. Port Melbourne have largely allowed them to. Maker with the header. Bozanovsky, that's a bit of a lazy back pass. Scott's onto it though. Negro. Francis chisting it down. I don't want to give Port Melbourne a sniff here close to half time, Preston. It's been a very comfortable half for them, but still is only a 2-goal advantage. A late goal here for the Sharks, and suddenly it's a very different game. Bozanovski's on his bike. He's got Pharaoh on his heels. Scott get as much behind that as he would have liked. More height than distance. McCloskey. And he's sent tumbling. It's a free kick here for Port Melbourne, who are having probably their best spell for the match almost. And another yellow card. Second for the Lions. I think it's Kubalay has gone in the book now.
It's the third by my count, Cade.
Well, yeah, second for the Lions and third for the game. Is that right?
I think we've had 3 Preston players booked. We had Tchaikovsky, Albano, and now
yes.
Kubalay, and so that's 4th for the game. They're racking up. A lot of paperwork.
Yes.
We can't even keep track of it. It's Jack Morgan thought long and hard about that one before producing the booking. It was definitely an untidy challenge. Whipped in by McCloskey again. It's an awkward delivery. It's wound up with Mells at the back post. Picking out Laban. It's off the chest. Half a shout for handball. Chego up to Brooks. Oh, it's a marvellous touch from Brooks.
Pharaoh did well to recover.
It was a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge. Delano Pharaoh did enough to stop Leighton Brooks scampering away. And that's the last action of a first half that's seen Preston in command, in control. The early opener from John Albano after Luke Jego picked George Mells' pocket on the edge of his own penalty area and put in a peach of a cross. Albano could hardly miss. The second goal is one that Luka Romic won't want to see again. Leighton Brooks beating him from an acute angle when he looked in more of a crossing position than a shooting one.
back to Genessteel Stadium. Welcome back to Genessteel Stadium, where the second half is underway between Port Melbourne and Preston Lions. The home side 2 goals to the good, thanks to Gian Albano and Leighton Brooks. And as things stand, they'll be going 5th in the table, unless Port Melbourne can turn this result around. No changes as yet, at least none that we're aware of. Preston, of course, in the red, Port Melbourne in the white, and Preston going towards the left of your screen in this second half, and they're going forward early doors here. It's Brooks, he chips it out wide to Albano. The 2 goal scorers combine. Albano back across, and a bicycle kick by Laban. In fact, it was Moyet who acrobatically intercepted there. Now it's Laban. Preston scored very early on in the first half. 2 goals in the first 20 minutes, and they were looking to get an early goal in this second half to really kill off the contest. Kate Lucas and Josh Parrish with you on YouTube. Hope you're enjoying the coverage on this cool Sunday afternoon. Josh, what are you expecting to see in this second half? Do you expect anything different from Preston at all, or is it just continuing on what was working clearly in the first 45?
I think they'd be anxious to avoid letting Port Melbourne back into the game. We saw a bit of fight in Port in the last 10-15 minutes. And there's 3 players nursing yellow cards in the Preston 11 now, so I have to be mindful of that. Tchaikovsky, Kubalay and Albano all walking the tightrope. So it's chipped into the channel for Brooks again. Cut back towards Albano. Vakurtzis missed it. And Albano wasn't expecting that ball to run through. Romero was screaming for the cutback there. Maybe the wrong option taken. There's a little shove from Albano on Vakurtzis as he cleared his lines.
Albano couldn't believe he missed that. It was a golden opportunity. It just didn't. His opponent Vakurtzis fooled him accidentally by getting in the way.
We're about to see a Port Melbourne change very soon after the restart. Clearly, whatever Maxim Gajdowski said to his team hasn't been adhered to.
No, we're only a couple of minutes into the second half.
It could be Muyet, in fact. He looks to be holding a hamstring. We'll wait and see.
Might have been from that bicycle kick.
Doesn't have acrobatic clearance.
Yes.
Maybe he called for a substitution.
Here's Kubalay right below us. Rasping crossfield ball to Brooks. The crowd likes this. The flag is down. Brooks is in the area. Brooks almost scores a second. Oh, that would have brought the house down. Not the biggest crowd today at Genessteel Stadium, but they would have been on their feet there had Leighton Brooks scored that.
Oh, it's fantastic work from Ollie Kubalay, just sidestepping Anthony Laban like he wasn't there and unleashing that trademark switch that he and Luke Jego have pulled off several times in this game already. Leighton Brooks is electric when he gets going. Didn't have the help in the middle arriving in time, so he went for goal himself and almost picked out the top corner.
He did that in the first half. Went himself for a very acute angle and had the better of the goalkeeper, Romic. So you can understand why he decided to do it again. Wasn't far away. They're coming forward once more through Jego. Now Romero. They're going through the gears here, the home side. Looking to put this game to bed. Romero back towards Kubalay. Port Melbourne really pressed back onto the edge of their penalty box now as Negro. Can't quite get the cross in, but he does win a corner. Stefan Negro, who seems to have brushed off that niggle in the first half. It looked as though it may have ended his afternoon early, but he's soldiering on. Meanwhile, it doesn't look if they made that change. Port Melbourne, there was a bit of movement, but I'm not sure
Well, maybe
the substitution has been made, so
the paperwork's been filed. I can see the fourth official holding the slip of paper, but maybe they're holding off on that change. Just
Moyet's out there waiting for this corner, which Romero will send in now. And it's headed on. It was Kubalay who got his brow to it. And it bounced across the face of goal and out for another corner from the other side.
Maybe they're superstitious as well in the Port Melbourne dugout. They say never make a change when you're defending a corner. I've got another one to defend here. Preston so close to a third goal.
That's clearly their intention. Try and put this game beyond Port Melbourne's reach soon after the break. It's Romero from the near side this time. There's a bevy of players on the edge of the 6-yard box. It's a great delivery. Bozanovsky was up there getting in a tangle with the keeper, and he infringed upon him according to the referee. And now that substitution is made. So it's going to be Mitchell Trzeski coming on. He'll go into the heart of defence, and Moyet takes the short route off. He's walking behind the goals, behind the byline now, so his afternoon is over.
I think that might be injury enforced, just from the way he was holding at his left hamstring.
Gillingham.
That's an acrobatic clearance, as you say, came at a cost. Jake Trajkowski nearly picks out the two commentators.
Has that ever happened to you? You've commentated here a lot more than I have.
It hasn't happened to be here. I do remember one errant clearance over at Kingston City smashing into the camera, which was some feat given it was poking out of the window of a portable building. A bird's eye view of this one. It'd be some kick to reach us up here. Trzeski, he's a former Preston player, had 2 spells at the club in 2019, back when they were in State League 1, and a brief stint at the end of 2023 where an injury hit Preston, went heavy in the transfer window. Port Melbourne win a corner. McCloskey has been lively down the left.
Set pieces are pretty much the only attacking sort of threat that Port Melbourne have posed today. They've had a few corners.
This is George Mells once again to take. Plenty of targets to aim for. Trajkowski's underneath it. Bozanovsky heads as far as Harbinson, whose volley is a long way off the mark.
He certainly wound up there, Harbinson. He telegraphed that from a mile out, but he knew from the moment it left his boot that it was going nowhere near the goals. It was lucky to stay inside the cyclone fencing. Wouldn't have wanted to be fetching that from Merry Creek.
There's a few balls that end up in the creek every season here at Preston.
I'm sure there is. As there would up at Pume or at Green Gully. A few venues that are perched on the edge of the world in some cases.
You've got to worry about the train tracks at Paisley Park as well. Flicked on by Brooks. Now dealt with by Gillingham. Trajkowski. Good ball down the left from McCloskey. Unopposed header for Bozanovsky. And knocked forward for Francis to chase. And Trajkowski's run out of real estate there.
Interesting to see whether Louis Yasevsky starts to look towards his bench, especially with a few guys on yellow cards. And Negro having a knock earlier in the game.
Unallowed to bounce. Dealt with eventually by Jego. Off the chest of Francis. Manages to keep possession for the home side. Kubalay. Yes, his passing route's blocked off by Maker. Comes from fine athletic stock. Maker. His brother Thon Maker played in the NBA. His cousin Alir plays for Port Adelaide in the AFL. It's quite some sporting family, that. A couple of other cousins who are basketballers around the world as well.
He certainly has the build of someone who could be a basketballer.
It's Brooks. Intercepted by Amanhom Khamis.
Playing in the NPL's pretty impressive, but it's a bit tough to brag when your family members of NBA and AFL players.
It's one back by Preston. Brooks. Got away from danger by Gillingham. Quickly taken throw for Negro. Romero. Kubalay. Preston will calmly recycle. Look for another avenue to attack. Brooks wants it to feet. Instead it's short to Negro. He can't force it through the gap. I think that's a handball against Negro there.
Here is Maker. Laban. Trajewski. Now Maker's got a bit of space, a bit of room to use those long strides of his. Kloski's been very busy. Laban rides a challenge. There's McCloskey ahead. This is promising. McCloskey will take on Negro. He gets the ball into the area. No great advantage though. Easy pickings for Bozanovsky. And Trajewski's lost his footing. And now Francis could be off to the races here. He's got Brooks on his outside. Danger here for the Sharks. Brooks sends it in. Khamis with a strong header away. Does well to avoid a corner there, Khamis. Poor old Trajewski has just come on. He probably should have had the longer stops on, because he certainly lost his footing. It was very nearly costly. And now he's conceded a corner. We're just having a better spell there for a moment at Port Melbourne, but that slip allowed Preston in, and now they're right on the front foot again with another set piece. As we tick up towards the hour mark. Still 2-0 to Preston Lions. Both goals coming in the first 20 minutes. Can the home side add a third here? It's Romero with the corner. It's a high one. Bozanovsky for Kurtzis pushes it further away, but they recycle possession, the Lions. Here's Romero. And he drifts it in. Danger here, but Romic wrapped his hands around that. Bozanovsky tried to wrap his hands around the keeper, but Port Melbourne survive.
That's cheeky from Bozanovsky, delaying the restart. Could have been the fourth Preston player in the book this afternoon. Jack Morgan's run a pretty tight ship. Albano was in two minds there. As Khamis advanced with the ball, he couldn't leave his post because he would have left the captain, Johnny Vikertis, free down the right. Gave Khamis all the time in the world to play that pass. Kubalay hits the deck, no whistle. Harbinson headed away by Bozanovsky as far as McCloskey, who wants it on his left peg. Jego saw that cutback coming. Brooks into Jason Romero. McCloskey trying to run him down. Maker getting back to help, and Port Melbourne win it on the halfway line. And Maker releases Delano Ferro. Decent chip to find Finn Harbinson, but it wouldn't settle for him. Mells.
Not much in the way of support for him. He was looking around George Mills and he almost put his hands out to his side as if to say,
where is everybody?
Yeah, where's my teammates?
Now Brooks. It's Albano one to chase. Back with Gillingham.
Game opening up a bit, it's becoming stretched.
Foligno doesn't know whether to stick or twist as Verkurtzis fires it forwards. Mells out to McCloskey. A lot of white shirts free in the middle. One of them is Maker. Pinpoint ball to find Delano Ferro, who will go at Foligno here. Jinking this way and that. Jego came across as an extra help defender. Now Francis lays it off for Kubalay at Preston. Should play their way out. Again, it's given away. Karmas. Strong sequence for Port Melbourne. They make it count on the scoreboard. Into the feet of Harbinson. Looks like Jonas Markovski is getting ready to come on for Preston. Getting his final instructions from the head coach. Verkurtzis onto his left. Drifts it in. Flicked on by Jake Tchaikovsky and safely into the arms of Ryan Scott.
It's
going to be Romero withdrawn by the looks at the board.
It's one of the few bits of work that Ryan Scott's had to do today. Very easy afternoon at the office so far for him. Negro. He can't get it away now. Harbinson. Maker. Thought about going up for the header. He probably should have done. He's about a foot taller than Jego, but Jego got the ball and Preston have it now through Albano right below us. Home side still searching for that knockout punch. Foligno. Kubalay. Brooks. Now it's Laban. Trzeski. Mills. Back towards Trzeski. Galloping run by the big centre back. Here's Maker. Verkurtzis. This is better by Port. Oh, Maker was coming in, but a good intervention by Negro. Preston being asked questions here. Harbinson, that's a good ball in. Negro headed away. Romero, who's about to be substituted. That might be his last intervention. As his teammate Kubalay goes down, and that just eases the pressure a little bit on Preston, which has been rising, Josh.
Yeah, Port Melbourne's best period of the game. They haven't really created a clear attacking opportunity out of it. I mentioned Ryan Scott hasn't really been tested yet. Kubalay fell pretty heavily there, holding his head.
Looks like Port Melbourne are making some changes too.
It's going to be Oliver Yankolovsky into the action.
I think Daniel Serra was the other one who was getting stripped and ready to go.
Could be an incoming double change as Jonas Markovski waits for his chance to enter the game. Foligno. Albano. Romero. Albano. Pass was off the mark. Gives Port Melbourne a chance to break quickly. Crossfield ball off the chest of Tchaikovsky, but it's not been entirely dealt with. Looks like Connor Bell's going to enter the action as well, so double substitutions being prepared for both sides potentially. Karmas off Francis. We'll have that change.
You mentioned, Josh, that they're short of defenders on the bench. They're certainly not lacking attackers. Preston Lions with Markowski and Connor Bell coming on. Not too many other clubs could call on players of that quality off the bench.
Albano and Romero withdrawn. Markowski and Bell to those attacking positions.
It's Karmas coming off for Port.
It's a straight swap at the back for Yankolovsky. And Daniel Serra will play out wide in place of McCloskey.
He's been pretty good, McCloskey.
I'm slightly surprised he's been taken off. Been one of Port Melbourne's brightest sparks going forward.
Had a pretty tough first half. They were getting a lot of joy down his flank, Preston, but he's been one of their best outlets so far today. Maybe just got a bit leggy, I suppose we are now well over the hour mark. Seems like the story of this game was written pretty early on. Preston with that early burst, and there hasn't been much to suggest things are going to change since then. Though Port have been better lately, and that's a bit of a risky back pass. Romic put it straight into the back of Francis. And now Connor Bell sees it out of play.
One of his first touches. Yankolovsky almost selling his goalkeeper short. Balls arriving like London buses. Two at once. And we'll restart through Gillingham, taking the goal kick short. Very in vogue tactic to have your defender take the goal kick to the goalkeeper. Maybe a bit less predictable which side you're going to play out from. That's the thinking anyway. Oh, that's a lovely back heel from Kubalay. Classy touch. Now Foligno swings it in behind. Really well-weighted ball for Bell. Has two arriving in the penalty area. Now three to aim for here. Connor Bell going at Yankolovsky. Lifts it to the back post. Too high for Leighton Brooks. Recycle through Negro. Early delivery from Jego. Markowski's header! And it drops in. Jonas Markowski with the instant impact. And Preston are 3 up and flying.
Well, that's what you call an impact substitution. Jonas Markowski has had a frustrating time at Genestil Stadium this season. He came to the club with big raps, of course. His last NPL campaign for Altona Magic was outstanding. He's been far from that sort of player so far this season, but that was a quality header. Just caressing it over the keeper and in under the crossbar. And that has well and truly put this game to bed. They've got 3 goals and they're going to get 3 points too. And they're going to go 5th in the table, Preston Lions. And who knows, now with a bit of extra spring in their step from that goal, they might really put a beating on Port Melbourne here. They've got still just over 20 minutes to play. Things could yet get a bit ugly for the visitors. And here's Markowski again, who's got a real spring in his step, and he wins it again and he sends it out towards Brooks. They're hungry for more goals here, the Lions. It's Markowski who nearly scores a second within 60 seconds. Glancing header there. Suddenly the crowd has come alive here. The game was just drifting along.
Haven't those substitutes injected some energy?
They certainly have.
2 assists today for Luke Jego as well. Both beautifully measured crosses.
Here's another of the substitutes, Bell. Kubalay. Oh, they're going through the gears now, Preston. It's Markowski again. Now Francis, he scuffed his shot. Suddenly they look like scoring every time they go forward here. It's Kubalay. And is that a handball? Gillingham shook his head straight away. And the referee agreed with him. But they are just hanging on at the moment, Port Melbourne.
Jack Morgan just signalled to his shoulder.
How this game has changed in the last couple of minutes. Suddenly any thought of a Port Melbourne fight back seems to have been well and truly snuffed out. Bell. Yankolowski intercepts. Doesn't get much easier for Port Melbourne. Their next game is at home against Dandy Thunder. One of the top 4 sides. Whilst Preston play Melbourne Knights, who get underway after this one at Dynamo, but very much contrasting fortunes for these two clubs now. But it's Port coming forward here. Sarah, the recent substitute, couldn't get on the end of that. It will be a Port Melbourne throw, though, as we head into the last 20 minutes here. Nothing doing there from Trzeski. Ryan Scott with the goal kick. He'll be keen to keep a clean sheet. His first game in Preston colours was a bit of a horror show, but it's been quite the contrast this afternoon in his second.
Just the tonic for Preston. So down after that Oakley result. Bounce back here with performance that sees them on the brink of vaulting those other finals contenders into 5th. That's a pretty untidy challenge from Francis.
Next week's game against Melbourne Knights, probably always going to be a big crowd, but might be a bit bigger now, given this performance.
Certainly, I think once the fans see the team up and about again, back in form, and against an old NSL rival as well, that's going to be a draw card. It was a great crowd for the away edition of that fixture over at Summer Street. It's a brilliant turnout, and it was a really lively atmosphere in the social club afterwards. So Kurtzis fires that one in. Oh, no Port Melbourne players attacking it at all. Every white shirt on the edge of the box just gave up on that. Connor Bell having his jersey pulled.
One Port Melbourne player they will be looking to get on the end of balls like that is Aidan Brown, who's about to enter the fray. The number 9 on his back. And it looks like Delano Farrow is going to make way, or has made way. A frustrating afternoon for him at his old club. Free kick taken quickly for Kurtzis.
I'm pretty surprised that they've brought both McCloskey and Farrow off. Two of the players who look maybe most likely.
Yeah, and especially bringing Brown on, you wonder who's going to give him any service. Maybe it's Serra, who's got the ball out wide now. Treads water a bit, waits for Maker. Seems like that last goal has just taken the wind out of Port Melbourne. They were having a good spell for a bit there, between 50 and 60 minutes. Seems like the energy's dissipated now. Mills. Here's Maker on the turn. As he's captain out wide. Good interception though by Foligno. Brown with his first touch since coming on. Not one that you'll want to remember.
Preston are readying another double change. Leighton Brooks, and for the first time this season, Stefan Negro is going to come off. So I think Preston probably not risking him after that knock he sustained in the first half. As we mentioned, Brandon Lawton. Oh, he's been robbed of possession here, Trychevsky, but the whistle's gone against Francis. Now we will have that change. So Leighton Brooks has run his race for the afternoon. Bit of confusion from Trychevsky as he tried to take the free kick while the substitution was being made. But Giorgio Serdenis is going to come on the flank, and Brandon Lawton will deputise at right fullback for Stefan Nigro.
Nigro's done well to last as long as he has. It looked like a serious sort of muscle injury on his thigh or quad or somewhere in the first half, and it looked like he might have a very short afternoon, but he's soldiered on. And now that lack of defensive cover on the bench hasn't really cost them. Lawton will come on, and he's a bit of a jack of all trades, so he'll be able to see them through the last 15 minutes or so with the comfort of a 3-goal margin. Here's Kubalay, and he's sent flying by Brown. Referee says get up. Jego, Foligno, now Markowski, it's over his head. Here's Franceschi, who's had a bit of a dodgy few minutes. He's been involved in a few hairy moments. He got away with one there. Preston defending. Foligno, Kubalay, Jankulovski and Francis come together. Port trying to get something out of this game here. Can they get a goal? At least give them something to go on to next week with. They were held goalless last week by St Albans. St Albans and Melbourne Knights, of course, about to kick off. And if this result stands, Melbourne Knights, if they get a result at Churchill Reserve, could go off the bottom of the table. Of course, there is 3 teams relegated this season, so still mightn't do them much good. They might still find themselves in VPL 1 next season, but
it's just crucial they don't let the gap open up to Dynamo. And even if it means they go bottom, Port Melbourne should be cheering for the Knights to take points off Dynamo, because one of them is going to have to overtake Dynamo to get out of that bottom 3. Even if it means the Knights pick up points, I think the gap opening up on the 3 teams in the relegation zone, including Melbourne Victory, means that a Knights at least getting a result in that game is absolutely crucial for Port.
John Markowski, of course, coaching Knights, and his son getting on the score sheet today, so I'm sure news of that's come through to him, and he's very pleased. Here's Lawton, his mop of hair. Kubalay has put in a good shift in midfield today, and now it's Sir Dennis who's just come on with the fresh legs. He sends the ball in. Bell was in behind. It's deflected away out towards the Preston boys. They've been making a racket this afternoon as usual. And it's out for a throw right in front of them.
There's been plenty to cheer about as well.
Just over 10 minutes to play. Markowski got in a tangle with Maker and won a free kick.
By my account, Cade, that's foul number 19 of the afternoon. It's been a bit stop-start.
It has. It hasn't been ill-tempered. There's been a few yellows, but nothing that has really gone over the top. Now some more defending to do for Port Melbourne. They've got what looks to be a 3-man wall, and it's Luke Jego who's got the ball in his possession. He's had an excellent afternoon. I think he'd be staying in the starting lineup after this. Especially so if he can maybe find the back of the net from here. It's Jego, he goes with the cross. Comes out towards Bell, who sends it back in towards goal. Oh, look at that! Connor Bell puts an exclamation mark on this performance from Preston, and how?
He's scored plenty of spectacular goals over the course of his Preston career. I'm not sure anything tops that. A rocket.
He hit that clean as a whistle, Connor Bell. And there was nothing Luka Romic could do about it. And there's nothing Port Melbourne can do about this result now. They are staring down the barrel of another heavy defeat. And they could end up bottom of the table by tonight. Whilst Preston are soaring into the top 5.
It's an absolute stunner from Connor Bell. That technique is so difficult. The ball didn't sit that kindly for him either. Had to swivel his body and catch that flush on the half volley.
It's his 3rd of the season. I think it's fair to say he won't score a better one than that.
That's a Connor Bell special.
If it wasn't for Luca College's Rabona effort, that's got the goal of the season well and truly wrapped up, you'd think. If it wasn't for that, that goal could be in contention. It's a great goal for any season. And it's the sort of scoreline now that really Preston deserve, given their dominance. They started strongly, had a bit of a flat spot in the middle, but they've been well on top for this second half. And certainly erased memories of last week, a 4-0 defeat, and they've turned the result around the other way a week later with a 4-0 win. And entering the business end of the season now, this could really put a fire under their campaign.
And the competition with playoffs in it, you only need to hit form at the right time. We all know the talent is there in this Preston side to make a fist of this NPL championship before entering the championship later on in the year. Markovski. Sir Dennis being held back. And I see another booking, this time shown in the direction of Mitch Trajewski.
He's had a pretty torrid period since coming on, Mitch Trajewski. Slipped over that nearly led to nearly put Preston in on goal. He's had a handball, given the ball away a couple of times. He's also had a few forays forward. It's been a bit of a mixed bag for a second half substitution.
Knocked forward by Bozanovsky. Lawton onto the second ball. Trying to pick out Markovski. No one cleared onto the roof of the grandstand. There was that 15-minute period in the second half where Port Melbourne looked to be building something, despite being 2 goals down. But as soon as Markovski's header floated in, as soon as Preston made those substitutions, really, this game has been well and truly over and done with. Marcus Schroen is going to be the last cab off the rank.
Yeah, that Markovski goal really knocked the stuffing out of Port Melbourne. And the Connor Bell goal will only have done that more so, and who knows, they mightn't be finished yet, Preston. It's opening up for them here. Kubalay down the near side. He looks for Bell in the middle. Romic wraps his hands around this one. Markovski was also sniffing around the 2 second-half goal scorers.
Ollie Kubalay has been fantastic today. He's covered so much ground. You don't always expect your central midfield player to be making those shuttling runs down the flanks. He's gotten into all sorts of attacking positions. Him and Jego have complemented each other beautifully. When one goes, one stays.
Well, it looks like Oliver Kubalay's work is about to come to an end, because I think it's his number that's on the board, and he will be replaced by Marcus Schroen. But again, it's an example of their strength and depth. Marcus Schroen, very experienced campaigner, but with the way Jego and Kubalay have played in midfield today, he might be a substitute a few more times this season.
He broke into the starting lineup against Avondale, had a marvellous performance, and then was dragged off early against Oakley last week. And there is that final change for Preston, and a well-earned rest for Ollie Kublai, who looks absolutely spent.
Divvying up man of the match honours, he'd be in the mix. Him and Leighton Brooks have been excellent today. A few others for Preston. They haven't had too many passengers. It's been a pretty solid team performance.
Jago as well with his double assists. Markovsky picks that one off from Maker, who's been left limping. Schroen raking pass from left to right for Lawton at right back. Markovsky's got himself free. It's Jonas Markovsky. It's taken a touch on its way through.
Well, poor old Luka Romic was rooted to the spot there. He wasn't reaching that. I think the touch probably did him as well, but gee, they could really rack up a few more goals here, Preston. They look like scoring every time they go forward now.
You can just tell the morale of these Port Melbourne players has dipped sharply. And Preston are getting all sorts of space when they attack. Jago's going to take the corner. Everyone wants a goal. 6 red shirts in the area. Bell perched outside for another wonder strike. If he can...
He'll be going for it this time. You can bet your house on that.
The ball comes to him. He's hitting it first time. It's well dealt with by Port Melbourne that time. Harbinson. Bell keeps it in and keeps it alive. Marvellous work from the Englishman. Lawton has to go long towards Francis, who knocks it through for Markovsky and puts Bell into the channel to chase. Markovsky offering in support. It's back with Jago. Go out to Bozanovsky. Well, Bozanovsky skipping past the challenge of Sarah. And he'll break into the box as Sir Dennis takes on his man and is taken down cynically. And Mitch Trajewski is off. His second booking of the afternoon against his former club. And he takes an early trip down the tunnel.
Well, I mentioned earlier he'd had a pretty topsy-turvy period since coming on. And that's certainly kept it off.
He was just beaten all ends up by Sir Dennis there.
Well, he was lucky he was just outside the area. It would have been a stonewall penalty otherwise, but sort of sums up the difference between the two sides. Preston's substitutions have changed the game. Port Melbourne's substitutions, well, one of them has got themselves sent off.
It's Marcus Schroen over the free kick to repair the Preston goal difference. Luke Jago perched outside. The left boot of Schroen. Whipped in towards goal! Oh, it's a Marcus Schroen special! Five goals for Preston. Connor Bells was going to take some beating, but Marcus Schroen's put forward his contender. Whipped into the top corner and the Preston fans go wild.
It's party time at BT Connor now, dearie me. Poor old Connor Bell, he mightn't even get the goal of the game award. That was a beauty from Marcus Schroen. It was a crowded penalty area, but he went over the top of all of them. And again, poor old Luka Romic, you've got to feel sorry for him a bit. I don't think he had much of a chance there. They was just hit too well. And you wouldn't bet against Preston adding another couple of goals here. We've got stoppage time ahead of us. Looks like there's going to be another 3 minutes. That could be a very long 3 minutes for Port Melbourne.
48 NPL Victoria, 49 NPL Victoria goals now for Marcus Schroen, sorry. So he's almost up to his half century. If this game goes on much longer, he might lift the bat here and now.
I was going to say, he's probably going to have an opportunity as the 3 minutes of stoppage time comes up on the board. It's going to be a very long 3 minutes for the Sharks. Can they just try and avoid shipping any more? This game has really gotten away from them. They've been behind from very early on, and now it's Francis right through the middle. His eyes were lighting up there too, Francis, but the flag went up. They could yet have half a dozen here, Preston. Port Melbourne were behind early, but they were in the game for much of it. They were competitive for a while. They had some good spells. Weren't really able to carve out any chances of note, though. Well, since that third goal went in, here's Schroen. Well, you can't begrudge him having a go. It was always going well over the top, though. Since that third goal went in, things have fallen apart for the Sharks. And you wonder where they go from here. Here's Romich. We'll be keen to see the back of this venue. It's straight up the middle. Jego towards Francis, who got a good old-fashioned shove in the back there by Gillingham. The referee lets it go. Here's Lawton. Shadows creeping across Geneseo Stadium now. The lights aren't on. Lucky the game doesn't have too much longer to go, otherwise you'd probably need to get the floodlights on. It is getting a bit dark. But they are hungry for more. The Lions at Sir Dennis now. Now Jego sends it into the mixer. A defender's missed it. I think it was Gillingham who had an air shot. Now Harbinson. It's been a tough old debut for Finn Harbinson today. There's Brown. Bozanovsky. They want to protect that clean sheet. Preston Lions. It's all well and good to score 5 goals, but they don't want to let in a late one now for Port Melbourne.
You'll see Aidan Brown just look to the heavens when Preston cleared that danger. Thinking, I can't get anything. It's barely sighted the ball. Layoff from Markovsky's a tad heavy, though.
Probably need to bring him on a bit earlier. The game was gone by the time he came on.
And the game's over now. And it's an emphatic showing from Preston. What a response from last week. 5 goals. And they piled on the misery for Port Melbourne late in this one. Wonder strikes from Connor Bell and Marcus Schroen, adding to their lengthy career highlight reels. Well, that's some performance from Preston. They've answered the critics and proved to themselves that they can still contend for this NPL Victoria title. Up into 5th, vaulting Hume City. A result they absolutely sorely needed, but for Port Melbourne, Cade, spiralling towards relegation. It's going to be a tough ask for them to get out of trouble now.
Well, they've been down the foot of the table pretty much all season, and today they look like a side who's headed for relegation. They were in the game for long periods, even though Preston got an early lead. You know, at least in general play, they were competitive, but once that third goal from Markovsky went in, their heads dropped, and had the game gone any longer, they were going to ship 6-7 goals. It was an emphatic finish from Preston. I think I described the game as humdrum at one point, and you said, no, Preston don't do that. Well, you were right, because they brought some subs on midway through the second half, and they really turned on the style with Markovsky, Bell and Schroen scoring 3 goals, 3 brilliant goals. And, you know, with the finals ahead and with plenty of quality in their lineup, you wouldn't better get... You'd have to have a close eye on Preston going forward. They're a team that the top 4, they've been set for a fair while, but each of those clubs will be just looking at Preston in the rearview mirror. They'll be not taking them lightly for the rest of the season, that's for sure.
We'll sign off here from Jenna Steele Stadium. The scoreline emphatic: 3 goals from the bench in the second half to complement Albano and Brooks in the first. 5 of the best for Preston. The finishes: Preston Lions 5, Port Melbourne Sharks 0. That was a lot easier than I expected. They lost to Port Melbourne last time. Yeah, right. Well, I heard you guys saying the other team was favourites, so I think you're talking about another